Alright, there you have it. A CR85 shock, fully mounted in a 150F chassis. What's up YouTube? I have my CRF 150F. This is a 2005 bike, and as many people know, the Kickstart bikes can accept the reservoir Showa shock from the CR85. Now the reason why is because you have all the real estate right here in this cubby. And your electric start bikes are taking up this whole area with the battery, but you can actually do a lithium battery swap and cut the box. But in this bike, I'm not going to show that. So to actually do it correctly, from what I've read on the forums, and this is my first go around on this bike, is you actually also need the lower link from the CRF 230. Now this link is about 80 to 90 bucks, depending on where you find it. I got this one for $80, brand new OEM. I'm going to show you the number, and it's the KPS is what you look at. I think the numbers are the same, but this right here for the 150F is a different letter. So make sure you look at this and make sure you get the one for the 230. It's a little bit different length of linkage. Oh, there that goes that. For the shock absorber, I got the shock off of eBay for a really good price. Cleaned up like brand new. I popped this seal off, or this cap off, to check the seals. They were clean, relatively clean. I cleaned them and then actually put a little bit of fork oil and re-lubricated the outside of that seal just so it doesn't harden. The nitrogen was almost to spec. I went ahead and brought it to the shop, had it topped off. This shock was from a 05, I was told, and the only thing I had to order for it was this cap, because somebody, when they broke the bike down, lost this cap. It's no big deal. $5 from Partzilla, really fast shipping. It didn't bother me, but obviously you have needle bearings in here, and you have to be able to compress that locking collar, or this collar inside, so this can rotate freely. So for the bottom, what we'll be doing is cutting this to length and drilling a new hole and getting this to fit where the factory shock was. So let's get started. Okay, so first I'm going to measure from the top of the frame up here down to this dimple. It is 20 1/4, and that way we have a baseline measurement to know what the distance is from our frame to our swing arm, so we can get it set as close to stock as possible, because we will be drilling and cutting this lower shock mount. So this is definitely a good time to make sure your links are all in good shape. This lower link feels nice and tight. These swing arm bushings are tight, so I'm not worried about that. Now we're going to put this side by side and show you the difference, or hopefully show you the difference. I might have to pull out a tape measure to show you. And then these bushings will be transferred over to the new pivot. So let's get all these out. Alright, so here's what people are talking about is the length difference. Now, suspension is all about geometry, and with the dirt bikes, every small, give and take on suspension is going to give a different characteristic. How the spring rate works, how the compression and the shock works, it all works together. It's just leverage. As you can see here, this is the 150F rear link. This is the 230F, rear link, and it's definitely shorter. So that is the difference, I believe. So that is KPS, that is KPT. So that is the difference. And now we're going to pull these bushings, transfer it over, and get this mocked up. One quick note. As you see, these old bushings that I'm taking out are in perfect condition, but the outsides of them are a little dirty. I am just taking a very light grit paper and getting this corrosion off, because that will potentially contaminate the new bearings when you push it through, and it's also not good for the seals. Also, for the seals, these bearings are needle bearings, and they are all full of grease, which is really good. But what they don't grease is the seals, and you don't want this steel pin rubbing on a dry seal, because it will eventually, it kind of wears it out, or it's prone to wearing if there's nothing to lubricate it, because rubber is sticky. And if it's rubbing and gripping on steel, it's going to wear out your seal prematurely. So I just put a little bit of grease on the rubber seals on both sides. In that way, this pin just slips right in, and it's nice and lubricated. And then just rub the excess grease off of this side. Alright, all the bushings are in. Now let's get it installed. Okay, so I just did a quick test fit of the shock completely broken down. That way I can cycle it up and down. What I noticed, it is hitting the frame here and here, so I'm going to put a small notch. Just a small amount of material needs to be removed. And this bracket right here needs to be bent outward because it was hitting the reservoir. Now down here on the linkage, the factory 150 linkage is long in this direction right here, okay? The 230 linkage is short. The beauty of it, from what I can see, is when I did my test fit, is that I will not have to notch the bottom of this aluminum shock, okay? Or the clevis, whatever they call it. Because I have plenty of clearance, and I'm going to cycle it, and as you can see, plenty of room. Now if you were to use the factory 150, it's going to put you slammed into this this fork, whatever you'd call it right here, this mount right here. It'd be hitting because of the length. Let me try to put it side by side. I'm not sure if you can see that. So in my opinion, I would go with the 230 link, get rid of the 150. And on top of that, this shock, you still have to re-drill the bottom, and I'm going to get you the most accurate measurement I can, because I believe I can achieve a good factory ride height, if not maybe give myself a 1/4 of an inch just for a little more ground clearance. And you know, there's so much more travel in this shock, so let's get everything measured, and I'll give you the data that I found. Okay, so now I can show you exactly what I was talking about for the clearance. Now I ground a little bit on both sides of this frame mount or shock mount. Very easy. Literally use a Dremel with a coarse sanding wheel and just take your time. It will chip away really easy at it. Now down low, here's where the mechanics start making sense. So now, as you can see, try to get a better shot, this can free float, and I would say that that right there is about center, and I still have that much room to go forward. So the center is forward, that's back. Fully have clearance that's going to flow correctly and not bind the shock in any way. Now up top, to show you how tight it is, the reservoir is actually resting on the frame when I am in this full forward position, but if I pull back about right there, the reservoir is actually just barely, probably get a sheet of paper between it, and it does have a little bit of, you know, left to right play, so I'm okay with that. Up top, you do notice there's a washer on both sides of the shock, that way I can center it in the bracket. And besides that, we're looking pretty good. Now, like I said, I'm gonna pull a measurement to see where we need to mark this to drill. And we should be good with just drilling and no grinding. So I'm really happy I got the 230 mount, and it's gonna look very, very OEM when I'm finished. All right, new day. I'm at the shop now. And as you can see, I scribed a line on the bottom of the shock. Roll this over. And you'll see that on this side is the threaded side, and I'm actually a hair above it. You go to this side, and I'm right on the edge of the hole. That's why, that's because I don't want to take off any more material that I don't need to take off the shock. I'm still going to go from my 1 inch from the bottom measurement, this top hole right here, and that is going to give me the same amount of material, actually maybe even a hair less than what it was from the factory. This flange is flush. You actually see the wear mark, practically flush to the bottom, and I want to recreate that exact same mount and just move it up. So let's cut off these tabs, and then we'll do some drilling, and I'm going to show you what size bit you're going to need to drill and tap the bottom of the shock mount. Okay, it took some doing, but I finally figured out this would be the best vise to use. It is just a drill press vise, but it has a smooth face, just like this vise. If you put this in a vise like that over there, that has grooves in the teeth, it will completely gouge the aluminum. So just a note, if you don't have one of these, of course, you don't have much options. And then to cut the aluminum, you're gonna have to use a saw. You can't use a cutoff disc or any type of hard grinding wheel, because it just completely mars up the wheel. So I'm going to use the good old saw right here, and it should make quick work of cutting these tabs off. So I'm going to cut this one first, flip it over, and it should be good. Alright, so we have everything officially ground where we want it to be. It looks like a nice factory finish. And I'm still going to stick with 1 inch because right there would be center. And as you can see, it's on the edge of the flange right here. And I believe that's going to give me the most strength. Of course, most of your force, well, all your force is being forced downward. But the fact that the suspension, when it decompressions, it drops out and is always being forced out. You don't want this to create any wobble or get a bend in this or hollow it out. So we're going to stick with the Honda specs as far as where this bolt goes because they know best. So let's get my drill and tap kit out and see where this falls. Alright, now we're on to drilling and tapping the bottom of the shock mount. These are the tabs that I cut off. I just use them as a quick reference, but this bolt is a 10 millimeter. Okay. And the closest drill bit size that I have that's practically exact is a 25/64. Okay, so we're going to put that aside for that. But the first hole that we're going to be drilling is actually going to be in 11/32, and that's because I want to go all the way through the shock body when I have this trued up on the drill press all the way through. Okay, then I will take this larger bit and drill one side, and that way this collar can go through its side that it needs to go through. And then I can take this out the drill press, rotate it over, and then tap my hole. So you want to make sure you don't get your drill bit screwed up, because if you go all the way through with the large bit, then you will have nothing to tap. And you'll have to use a nut and a different bolt. Not a big deal. Might be easier if you don't have a tap kit. If you don't have a tap kit, just use this drill bit, this 25/64, and go to the hardware store and get a bolt that has a collar on it like this. with a longer thread. You can put a nut. I just want to do it the way it was made. Now the top is a 10 by 1.25, and that's what you need to thread for your new bolt. For your new hole for the bolt. As you can see, it's correct thread pitch. So just make sure you have everything in order. One of these charts will show you exactly what size you need. If you don't have one of these, again, the internet. And this is just a cheap drill bit set off of Amazon, nothing fancy. Definitely recommend getting one of these as well. Alright, so I actually put the shock back in the vise. This is the smaller hole that we will be putting the threads in. And I have my 10 by 1.25 tap in. So we'll give it a little bit of lubrication. And start threading it in. Alright, so here's the true test. Bolt fits very, very tight, barely any side-to-side play. I'm going to thread this in, and there you go. Still pushing a little bit of hairs out, so I'm going to take this out and I'm going to clean it. And then obviously we're going to put this back together. Definitely going to use Loctite on this, as we do not want it coming loose. You never want a bolt coming loose in an aluminum housing, because it'll start to chew up the threads. There you go. Threads look good. Everything looks perfect, yep. I'm going to just clean these threads up a little more with some brake cleaner. And this project is over, so get it back to the house and get it on the bike. Alright, there you have it. A CR85 shock, fully mounted in a 150F chassis. Now, there are no clearance issues that I can see anywhere. Everything has plenty of clearance. This is a tight area right here, but there's also a tight area, I'm not sure if you can see it, right there. I actually put a piece of foam with an adhesive back on it to where this won't knock against the frame. It's not actually pressing under a load, but it can tap it as the shock moves. So now the air box is on. You can see everything fits just like the factory location does, and over here you have all that room for the reservoir. Now right here is the breather, and it is indeed resting on top of the shock, but it's all soft rubber. I'm not worried about that. But just note, it is a tight fit and there is no way around that. Not that I can see. So all in all, this is all fitting really, really well. So let's get the whole bike put back together, and then I'll pull it out in the sun. Okay, so it looks like I'm actually still at 20 1/4, maybe a hair under. So my measurements are correct. You definitely want to measure 1 inch from the back at the bottom of the shock, and that will be your new hole to drill for your shock mount. Alright, so there you have it. The build is complete. Shock is in, everything fits well, there's no clearance problems, and the next video this thing will be outside, cleaned up, and I'll do a full walk around of the entire build. So if this video helps you, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.